Today we're going to be looking at rounding decimals. Before we get started, let's make sure that we are knowing our vocabulary. What is rounding? Rounding is just a simple form for estimation. We are going to be looking at some rules that will help us identify how we should round. So first, let's look at the rule. Look at the digits that are given to you, and you are going to have to figure out first what digit we're rounding to. That seems confusing at the moment, but we will address that just a little bit more in a moment. The next rule will be that if the number is 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, the number you are rounding will stay the same. Okay, so let's look at the next one. If the number is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, that is right of the place value you are rounding to, you will add 1 to it, which seems very odd. But you will see how that is addressed. We will look at some number lines shortly, so it will give you more of a visual. First, numbers that are to the right of a decimal are not necessarily 0 at all times, and they can't just be changed without a reason. And no matter how many zeros we put to the end of a decimal, which is on the right-hand side, it will not affect the number or how you are going to read it. So let's remember this poem because I will address it multiple times. 0 through 4, just ignore. 5 through 9, add 1 more. So let's look at the first example. We are going to round 4.3 to the nearest whole number. So we underline the 4 because the 4 is in the whole number's place. And we are going to look at the 3 next to it. So the 3 is going to make that 4. If you think about the poem, 0 through 4, just ignore. 3 falls between that. So 4.3 will stay the same as 4. So let's look at this number line. We have 4 and we have 5. In the middle, of course, is 4.5, 4.5. So let's look at the arrow of 4.3. And which one is it really necessarily closest to? Is it closer to 4 or is it closer to 5? And yes, you are correct. It is 4. So 4.3 rounds to 4. So let's look at another example. We are going to be looking at 0.263 or 263 thousandths. We are going to look in the 10th spot is what we are going to be rounding to, and its neighbor, the 6, is where we are going to put our focus. So let's look at the number line. We are going to put 0.2, and we're going to add 2 zeros, because remember, adding zeros does not change the number. And we will put 0.3 at the end. And let's locate 0.263 on the number line. If you look at that, it is closer to 3 tenths than it is 2 tenths. Remember our poem, when you look at that 6, 0 through 4, just ignore. 5 through 9, we're going to add 1 more. So we're going to add 1 more to 2 tenths, and it's going to be 3 tenths. So let's look at this example. We are going to round to the 100th spot. The 7 is in the 100th spot. The 5 will be the deciding factor of whether 7 is going to stay the same or 7 is going to have 1 more added to it and make it and 8. So let's first look at the number line. We are going to put 9.87. And then on the opposite side, we will put 9.88. And let's look. 9.875 is in the middle completely. So the visual does not help us. So let's reference the poem. 5 through 9 tells me I will add one more to 7. So 9 and 875 thousandths will round to 9 and 88 hundredths. Good job. So let's look at a few of these. We're going to round the underlined digit. 8 is the underlined digit. Look at the 4. 4 says we just ignore everything to the right and it becomes 18. Let's look at the second problem. 0 and 849 thousandths. 4 is in the hundredth spot. We're going to look at the neighbor 9. 9 will make the 4 become a 5 because we will add one more. So the problem will now be 0.85 or 85 hundredths. The next problem, let's look at the 5. It makes the 7 become an 8. And the next problem, it's a 0. So 4.004 is going to be closer to 4. Good job. So on your own, you will need to work these problems. You're going to round the first 3 to the nearest tenth, and the bottom 3 you will round to the nearest hundredth. Don't forget to look at the neighbor next door. 0 through 4, just ignore. 5 through 9, add one more.